Hello and welcome back to Ticker Symbol Live, the channel where we try to explore ARK Invest's vision of the future by looking at the market picks that they're making today. I hope everyone had a good Easter weekend. Today we're going to jump right in and look at 10X Genomics, a big genomics position that ARK Invest has in ARKK and ARKG. So I hope everyone is excited because this is my first real foray into the genomics space. I'm starting to ramp up my research in the area to cover the one and only platform that ticker symbol U has not been covering extensively. The other four being artificial intelligence, robotics, energy storage, and blockchain, all of which ticker symbol U covers a lot. And then, of course, there is genomics, the future Fangs, according to Cathie Wood and ARK Invest. So let's start diving in. First off, let's start with the ARK reactor. So as you can see, I have things ordered by the ARK Rank today. So Tesla is on top here because Tesla is ARK Invest's biggest position. And we're starting to see certain stocks finally level out after the inclusion of ARKX. One thing I can do, we can always take a look and sort by biggest percent change in shares. And you'll notice a lot of these have similar amounts, around 30% increase in shares from the day before. And that's just because these are all stocks heavily included in ARKX, ARK Invest's new fund themed around space exploration. And as that fund continues to grow at, you guessed it, 29-30% per day, you'll see these stocks get invested in that amount accordingly, right? So reInvent, Spirit, L3 Harris, the ARK Invest 3D printing ETF, Airbus, down and down the list. These are ARKX stocks, which is why I don't have the list sorted this way today. Instead, we can look at ARK Rank and we can go down and down the list in terms of their biggest holdings, i.e. their highest conviction holdings, since these funds are all conviction weighted. And the first greenest bar is a stock called 10X Genomics, ticker symbol TXG. So I hope you enjoy the cheeky title of 10X Genomics 10X. 10X is really part of the name, right? So it's a $620 million position for ARK Invest, so over $500 million in it, and it sits in ARKK and ARKG. So here's 10X Genomics. They have about $387 million in it in ARKK, and they have about $233 million in ARKG. It is ARKG's 16th overall biggest position, and it is ARKK's 18th biggest overall position. So in the top 20 of the two biggest funds by assets under management for ARK Invest, and the biggest outsized buy in terms of their high-ranking positions from the previous market day to today. So what I want to do today, because I'm not an expert in the genomics space, one thing I thought we could do is let 10X Genomics themselves tell us what the heck they do, and then I can start filling in the gaps around the parts that I understand, and together, hopefully, you'll get more than the sum of our parts out of this presentation. So let me unshare this screen. Let me go ahead and share a different screen, and we can start with the basics. So 10X Genomics, hopefully I'm sharing a tab here, is advancing human healthcare by resolving biology. And they literally mean resolving. What that means is they are showing you single cell, a map of a single cell in high enough resolution so you can see subcellular structures, right? So think about all the advances that have been made with cameras and imaging technology in recent years and decades, and how that's let us see smaller and smaller details with higher and higher accuracy and precision. What 10X Genomics does is allow you to see a single cell, but instead of seeing it as a single point in space, you get to see the single cell as if it was a huge map, and now you can make out what's going on in the substructures inside a given cell. And that, of course, unlocks a lot of opportunities for different healthcare solutions that require that level of resolution. Think camera resolution. So what exactly do they think they're enabling? Let's talk about it. Let me know, please, in the comments if you can hear this. This is my first time sharing audio that's not mine. Sounds like no audio. Okay, no problem. So, basically, what's going on here, if you can't hear the audio, is there's a lot of important cellular and subcellular things going on. I promise I'll fix the audio in the future. Sorry about that. So basically, let me just replay the video and I will talk over it so you can like follow along with what's going on. So science traditionally has to do a lot of individual mapping of cells and subcellular structures and then piece that together after the fact in computers. So they're spending a lot of time with microscopes and computers mapping each part of, a cell, and then they have to stitch that together themselves. Think about like panoramic images or like lots of tiles in Google Maps and all of the things that we used to have to do before. After the fact, we would gather all the data and then a human would have to piece together how that data fits together like a literal puzzle, right? So what 10X Genomics is enabling, in case you missed it in the video, is it's saying, hey, we've developed a solution that lets you see all this stuff in the same image, right? It's a high resolution image of a single cell. And what that lets you do is have the computer piece it together for you instead of you having to take the time and the resources, and the money and like actually having instruments that find yourself and then piecing it all together, right? And what that unlocks is a coherent image of an entire cell, allowing you to see what's going on kind of under the hood. A lot of problems with image stitching, for example, in panoramas, happen at the edges, right? Where you're literally stitching the image together and like how that forms like this jagged interface. Think about literally a puzzle where it's like, where are all the problems happening? Where all the puzzle pieces individually touch, right? That's where you like mess things up and can break pieces and like, oh, these two pieces don't even fit together. Like I need to go back and retake this image or else I can't finish the puzzle. That's what 10X Genomics is working on. So I'll play another video and I will talk over it this time since nobody is getting audio from the screen. I assume people can hear me now, right? Is that correct? Let me know if can you hear me now, right? I don't know what audio is being shared at the moment. StreamYard just makes it look like both audios are working. So basically what's going on here. Oops, I need to unshare this. Got it. Everyone can hear me loud and clear. That's great. So we'll go back to sharing the browser window since nobody can hear me anyway. No problem. We'll do one of these, right? We'll just keep on rolling. No problem at all. So what's going on here is they're letting you visualize full tissues and sub-tissue level samples, right? So here's another video, and I will talk over it this time, so there's no issue with the audio. And what's going on here is tissues are made up of a lot of cells, right? And a lot of subcellular structures, right? And the problem is, how do you resolve exactly where everything is in relation to each other to understand how problematic cells touch and interface with non-problematic cells, right? So what you're seeing on the screen here is a pretty cool visualization of cells, but then they're going to zoom out to a tissue sample. And now what they're talking about is how issues manifest on tissues. Sorry, I got myself caught up in my head there because that rhymed. And literally where the locations of the problems are on the subcellular level and how those things are being expressed in genes, right? So again, the idea here is taking something that's traditionally very hard to see and showing it at a resolution that's meaningful to scientists to start addressing real problems, right? And the idea here is when you gain resolution, right? Again, this is single cellular resolution. You can start treating all the diseases that they just mentioned, right? So if we go back here, being able to look at these tissue samples and how these genes are expressing or expressing themselves allow you to start diagnosing things like stroke, Parkinson's disease, certain types of cancer, impairments to vision, Alzheimer's, and other things that may manifest at the cellular and subcellular level, like DNA, RNA, things like that. So that's what's going on here, and why this type of mapping the cell and showing it in high resolution is important. So I apologize for the sound issue. I will definitely clear that up for next time. I thought it was just as simple as sharing a browser with sound. Apparently it's not. But what's going on here is massively parallel single-cell sequencing is allowing researchers to explore biology at true resolution. So there's a data pipeline going on here from a biological sample to the way they image it, to the way they, sort of sequence it in terms of the organization of where the sample is in space and, in sequence, and then how they process it using software, right? So that's exactly what this pipeline shows here is, they do some special sample preparation. They do a library construction so that you know what this sample is and why you are looking at it. Then you can sequence it to understand, what this sample is with high accuracy and what the problems in the sample might be. Then the analysis that comes from doing the sequencing after the construction, and then the data visualization, right? And that's that subcellular map so you can see in high resolution what's going on. So that's kind of the context for the investor presentation that I thought would make a lot of sense before we dive into it. So 10X owns things in each part of this value chain, this all the way from the sample to the visualization of the data step, and they provide solutions that can integrate into existing workflows. That's the other important part because labs are expensive. Labs have existed for before 10XG and 10X Genomics, and the worst thing you can do is say, hey, we have this solution to one of your problems, but it requires you buying all of our solutions across the entire chain. That, when I was working in government, that was something that would happen often, and we would instantly dismiss that vendor because it's like, dude, we've built this lab over decades. We're not about to throw everything out just because you have one elegant solution to one piece of what we do, right? So one thing I always look for as an investor is when solutions are able to integrate into existing workflows, existing lab technologies, existing whatever that business does, and just say, we're going to take out this one piece and we're going to put in our piece. And when you see how much better that works, then you'll start buying the pieces next to it from us. That's a clear land and expand model that works very well in business, and in healthcare, it's no exception. So let's take a look at their investor relations report with that in mind. So the first thing I want to point out, so this is from the 2021 JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. That's where you can find a lot of the genomics investor presentation reports. This is apparently a gigantic conference because many of ARK Invest's genomics holdings have their analyst day and their analyst presentation focused around this JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. Right, the next thing I can do is make this even bigger so that you guys can see it. So, major discoveries across the life sciences, right? Some of the biggest breakthroughs of our time are unlocked by genomics, unlocked by healthcare, unlocked by understanding what's going on inside the human body at a very fine level. Everything from immunideficiencies to subcellular diseases, cancers, understanding the human genome as a whole, right? And then obviously everything else that comes with that, like gene therapies and traditional therapies and mRNA-based vaccinations and so on. So there's a lot of new products going on in 10XG. I'm not going to read this to you, and I'm not going to pretend to understand everything this company does. But the real point here, if we scroll all the way down past, sort of the hype material of the presentation, is this is the focus areas. These are the focus areas of 10X Genomics, right? Biology and chemistry are the parts that I think most of us have the most trouble with unless we're experts in that space. But the thing to remember is this is a technology company. They have hardware, they have software, and they have data analytics packages that are specific to the space that they operate in, right? So the biochemistry space may be something that's not intuitive to us, but we all understand the idea of building hardware for a specific solution. For example, a special camera for cells instead of cameras for cell phones or cameras for cars in like a Tesla, etc. The software that drives those solutions, and then the data analytics that extracts all of that information and uses artificial intelligence to make meaningful decisions at scale, right? So I just want to point your attention to the fact that even though we're talking about a genomic stock, and even though we're all like, this is way outside my wheelhouse, the actual solutions are things that you can all wrap your head around and that I can wrap my head around, right? Hardware, software, data. Great. So this is the type of stuff that 10X Genomics provides in the hardware, the software, and the data, right? Instrumentation to do the sequencing and the sorting and the imaging and all that. The consumables are the actual samples being imaged, sequenced, and sorted. So what happens is they provide the sample, you use that sample in an experiment, and then that sample, once it's opened, and I assume what's going on is it's exposed to the air somehow, or it's exposed to a liquid or a solution or a chemical process that prevents it from being reused, right? So it's consumed throughout the experiment. So you have to rebuy samples if you want to run multiple different experiments in series on the same thing that you're looking at, right? So these samples are actually consumable. That's important to know. And then the software that sits on top of that to take that data and make meaningful decisions. So across the entire value chain, 10X Genomics is supplying something. So a little information about tissues. They're heterogeneous, meaning they are different, right? They're made up of different structures. Homogeneous would mean they are exactly the same at a structural level. You look at it and it's one clear pattern. And so what 10X is saying here is simply, hey, tissues are complex and made up of different stuff, right? And mapping that stuff is important. And so how conventional maps of a cell look like are that point that I was saying earlier, right? It's a point so this is, whatever the two dimensions they're mapping the cell onto, you get a point that sort of says, here's the ratio of these two things that describe this cell to you. And wherever this dot is tells you what kind of cell it is. And they're moving away from that to single cell data, right, for thousands of cells that allow you to really map, to really understand what that cell is. Is it a neuron? Is it an endothelia? Is it a parasite? Is it you can start getting this highly, highly accurate data for these same two dimensions to help you understand what kind of cell this is and how it relates to everything around it. So they've developed 3 product platforms. The word platform, every time I see it, I want to shout it out. The word platform is incredibly important. Every company that ARK Invest tries to invest into is a platform company. It's a platform that cuts across market sectors, geographies, all of these other things, industries, different healthcare solutions. And the reason for that is because when you build multiple businesses on top of a single platform, the platform wins in all those spaces. Think about all of the businesses enabled by Zoom as a communications platform, all the stores enabled by Shopify as an e-commerce platform. So what you're seeing here is 10X Genomics as a product platform in the genomics space. Chromium single cell, Visium spatial, so understanding the ratio of those two things for different cell types, accurately visualizing those cells at sub-cell resolution, so looking at how all those pieces fit together, and then in situ, my best guess for what that means, so this is a guess, grain of salt, I'm not in the genomic space, is this is doing stuff in near real time, right? So in situ to me means, hey, I'm in the situation, that's like a shorthand for that, and usually that's a way of saying I'm making a very reasonable representation of a final guess, but in real time. So you're sacrificing some accuracy for a lot of speed. And so the idea there is, integrated microscopy, literally looking under a microscope and being able to see high resolution stuff is important. And then so these are like time scales, right? Different time scales from highly accurate at the cost of computational time to very reasonably accurate for how fast you're doing it. Trading between resolution and speed is my best guess for what this chart is saying. So, and then when you do that, when you move from this resolution on the left here to this type of resolution on the right, you're enabling a lot more options in research throughout all these different spaces. The legacy toolkit across RNA research, screening using CRISPR, DNA research, T and B cell receptors, chromatin, and proteins, right? So these are all the types of things that are affected by being able to look at things in such high resolution. And so, of course, this is an investor presentation. This is a growing market. Cathie Wood often says that the genomics area is the next set of Fangs. If you don't know what Fang means, that's the Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google, Fang. And those are internet companies that have skyrocketed in valuation over the last decade. And so the next set of Fangs, Cathie Wood thinks, are going to be in the genomics sector, not in the internet sector again, right? So this is the global life sciences increase in market valuation over time. So applications where 10X Genomics offers immediate alternatives is a $15 billion market, and it's growing to a $60 billion market. So this might be what it is today, but in the future, it's going to keep evolving and transforming as things like 10X Genomics keep unlocking new areas of research via their high resolution imaging of cells and subcellular structures. Right? So again, think about cameras. Think about how much better cameras have gotten over the years in terms of resolution, frame rate, performance, bit rate, and all that stuff, and all of the different things that has unlocked. Cameras as an instrument, cameras as, a shopping aid, augmented and virtual reality through cameras, streaming, all of the video content that's unlocked. So all these different markets that have opened up as camera technology has gotten better. That's what's going on here, is different healthcare markets and research markets are going to open up as cameras for cells are getting better, right? It's not exactly a camera for cell because it's microscopy and there's a lot else going on to image cells, but that's an analog that we can all understand, right? How cameras got better and markets expanded, how mapping cells are getting better and the market is expanding. So single cell platform, here's the hardware, software, and consumables again, and all of the awards they have won and all of the important journals that they've been a part of. Nature is one of the highest impact journals in the world. I'm not sure if Nature Methods is a subset of Nature the journal or if it's another one, but the point here is these are innovations that are opening up new markets. They're platforms, so a lot of important research is sitting on top of them. So as an enabling technology, they're getting a lot of awards for that. Just like CRISPR won the Nobel Prize in chemistry, right? Because a lot of things are being built on top of CRISPR. So here are the challenges that are being addressed, right? There are affordability challenges with doing, single sample experiments, sample preparation bottlenecks, right? So think about preparing each individual piece of that puzzle we described before preparing it and then realizing, crap, this piece didn't work out. I need to take the image of this piece of the puzzle again. And until I have every piece in place, I can't run my experiment. Enable easier informatics, so data extraction and insight generation, and then delivering new capabilities, right? Using all three of these things to enable new therapies and new types of research, right? So they go on and on with exactly how their solutions do this. This is very industry-specific material. But one thing I want to point out that I hope they say here, here we go. Enabling pilot and smaller experiments. This is the part that's really interesting to me, right? So one of the problems in experimentation in general, and we'll get back to this slide in a second. Let me talk at you here for a minute. One of the big problems in experiments is the further down the chain you go. So you start at a whiteboard, you design an experiment, you think about exactly what you're trying to solve, and then you say, how can I solve this in a meaningful way so I know I've solved the problem, right? When you get to the part where you're spending money for that experiment, buying tools, buying hardware, buying software, there's a point in the experiment where you're all in. And that's where the risk is the highest because you've spent your money and you still haven't gotten your data, right? All cost, no reward. So what enabling pilot and smaller experiments does is say, don't run the full experiment. And this is true in science, not just in genomics. Run a mini experiment, buy a small sample, try a prototype, right? And by doing that, you de-risk the experiment. You verify that you're running the right experiment. Then you buy the rest of your gear, the rest of your samples, the rest of your equipment. You hire the rest of your scientists, specialists, whatever you need, because you're a lot more confident that is the right experiment, and you will get the data you need for whatever it is you're trying to do. Traditionally, in healthcare and in genomics, it appears, it appears that doing that was very hard, right? Doing this low pilot, small scale pilot experiment was tricky because there was no way to get a little bit of the stuff you need, try it, then go back to the whiteboard and say, oh, actually the experiment should look like this. I need to change this and that. I'm glad I didn't buy 100 million samples because, this idea isn't going to work now that I've tried it and I know it on one sample. So being able to do this in the genomic space reduces startup costs for single experiments, enables proof of concept before scaling, and lets you interrogate a large number of cells per sample. So you can, it's basically saying, hey, we'll let you build a mini puzzle to make sure the way you're putting the pieces together works before you go and invest in buying the whole puzzle, right? So that enabling, again, is incredibly important for everything. And now it appears that 10X Genomics is unlocking it for their part of the healthcare space. And then, of course, the flip side of that is you can unlock more samples for a single cell. So, just like you can imagine taking a high resolution image of something far away and zooming in, the trade-off is you can take a high resolution of something very small and blow it up, right? So either you're having more information in a single space, right? Like I can take a big panorama at high resolution where it doesn't look grainy, or I can zoom all the way in and blow stuff up and have it not look grainy. Zoom in and have it not look grainy. So those are the two sides of the same coin of increasing your resolution. I think we're almost through this. And then, of course, cloud solutions, right? So being able to, do data analytics from multiple computers and all that kind of stuff. So we're getting into the software side of what 10X Genomics is, which is much more familiar territory, right? And so basically the idea is they're unlocking the ability to look at way more cells per experiment, right? So cells per routine experiment pre-10X Genomics, in the mid to 2010s, talking about tens and hundreds of cells per experiment. And then with 10X Genomics, they've literally 10X that number many, many times over, allowing experiments to run at much higher throughput, right? Looking at many more things in parallel. And the point there is to make much more statistically significant decisions. And so these are the devices they sell to enable that. New products, so again, those are those four challenges, right? So affordability, sample preparation, informatics, and capabilities, the four challenges that we just saw, and then how they're actually affecting those markets. So I love this slide, right? So all-in costs down up to 30%, right? All-in costs reduced by 60%, throughput kit startup costs reduced by 60%. So enabling you to run those mini experiments to de-risk your big purchases by understanding things earlier and cheaper in the life cycle of the experiment. They have, novel solutions for sample preparation, informatics, that's the cloud solution we just looked at briefly, and then capabilities, right? So running many, many million cell experiments, right? So all over the value chain, from sample preparation to the hardware, to the software, to the data science, and addressing meaningful problems in their market. De-risking experiments, making them more affordable, preparing samples in a better way, collecting the right data, and unlocking that data for more and more samples is what 10X Genomics does. And then, they go into much more, hey, here's the awards we've won for different pieces of this value chain. So I think this stock is really cool. I think this company is really cool. I'll caveat this with I'm not a financial advisor and I'm not in the genomic space. So, but I respect a lot of what's going on the hardware, software, and data side coming out of 10X Genomics, which are things I understand. And again, the point here is they're increasing the resolution at which we can see single cells and run single cell experiments. And there's a lot of analogs in the tech space. Think about increasing the resolution of Tesla's cameras, right? Think about increasing the resolution of telescopes to look at surfaces of Mars, right? And there's a lot of jumps in capabilities that you can see when you increase the resolution of the instrumentation and the imagery. So it's a no-brainer to me that doing this in the genomics space makes a lot of sense, because we can see it all over the other sciences and see that it made sense there as well. So with that in mind, let me ask you the question of the day. Comment below and let me know, do you invest in genomic stocks? Do you think about individual genomic stocks? Do you just let ARK Invest do it for you through ARKK and ARKG? Are your biggest concerns more about technology or regulation or, experimentation failing, or all of the different hoops that genomic stocks have to run through? What do you think about genomics? It's so very different than the other 4 platforms that ARK Invest invests in, right? Artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, robotics, and energy storage are very kind of techie in nature, right? We all kind of get it because we can all kind of touch it, just through our cell phones. You can touch all 4 of those spaces. And robotics are things that, A, build those things through manufacturing, but B, we've all probably seen a drone at least, or touched a drone, or driven or sat in a Tesla, or you can name all of these examples of robots that we've probably already touched by now. But genomics is the one thing that, many of us don't interface with and don't have much cultural exposure to through our daily lives. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this question, just because it's so different. I think that's a good place to end the live stream. I will call out a few things that I've seen in the comments very quickly, just to wrap things up. First of all, thanks for buying my coffee today, Caesar. I appreciate you. And I see you in the comments of every video on ticker symbol U. You, sir, are a champion. Thank you so much. So, think increasing the resolution of chip manufacturing. Exactly. Here's another example of where, doing more in the same amount of space, or offering what's the other way? So doing more in the same amount of space or offering the same information in less amount of space are 2 sides of the same coin. You're increasing resolution, right? So that's what's going on here at the imaging level for cells, thanks to 10X Genomics. Can't live in today's day and age and think this is the best healthcare we'll get. I look at the top weighted companies in ARKG to get a good understanding of where the industry is heading. I love this comment. This is the comment that we're going to end the stream on. This is exactly what Ticker Symbol Live is trying to do. It's not about always buying individual stocks and following ARK Invest and saying, oh, they bought this, so we should go buy this. It is about understanding the future and ARK Invest's vision, and more broadly, our own vision of the future, by seeing what is actually moving the market. Why is 10X Genomics one of ARK Invest's top positions in ARKK and ARKG? And what can we learn about it, and thus learn about the future of genomics? Hey, things are increasing in resolution when we look at cells. That's pretty cool. Novel microscopy techniques are opening doors in healthcare. That's pretty cool. Yes, that's an investing statement and whatever, but it's also a statement about the future, our future, your future, and mine. And that's why this is part of that larger framework of, looking at the market, understanding the vision, and mapping that to what's going on in the actual market. Hey, maybe this technology won't work out. And one of the things we learned is the right way not to do microscopy. I'm certainly not saying that about 10X, but I'm saying there's value in understanding which companies succeed and which companies need refinement over time, and what that means for the science behind them, and what that means for like the future of healthcare, and more broadly, the future of humanity, right? So it's a feedback loop going all the way from the markets to all the way to that vision in your head and back. And those 2 things should constantly be updating each other. Ticker symbol U for the vision, ticker symbol live for the markets. That's it. Thank you, Austin. This is a wonderful comment. Yes, and the last thing, I say the last thing and then I do 2 more things. So, it's because I'm really excited to be here, and it seems you are too. So I'm happy to always stay a few extra minutes. The Singularity is Near by Ray Kurzweil is one of my favorite books of all time because what it does is it takes all of ARK. So I should say this backwards because The Singularity is Near came out way before ARK Invest. But what it does, if you're an investor who follows ARK Invest and you read this book, The Singularity is Near by Ray Kurzweil, is you get an appreciation for how all 5 of ARK Invest's platforms of innovation, DNA sequencing, genomics and DNA sequencing, artificial intelligence, robotics, energy storage, and blockchain technology are converging. They're overlapping more and more, and our future as people and as, animals and as sentient beings is going to increasingly involve touching those things and integrating with those things in new ways. So one of the things Ray Kurzweil calls out is we are going to be part of that computer. We are going to be part of that artificial intelligence in the future. Man and machine will start merging, and that's the singularity. And the last thing I'll say about that book, besides it's awesome and you should go try to read it, it's a tough read. It took me a while to slog through it. I'm on my 3rd or 4th read through and there's still stuff I don't understand. It's not an easy book. I think it's very worthwhile. There's another one coming out. I believe Ray Kurzweil is coming out with a book called The Singularity is Nearer this year. So I would go check out that book. I should go make an affiliate link or whatever so people can, find it in the description below and then I get 2 pennies or whatever it is. But in all seriousness, go Amazon that book and realize that there's a sequel coming out this year and they are extremely relevant to ARK Invest specifically because they're all about future technology, advanced technology, innovation, and what it means for humanity. It's not an investing book, it's a technology book, and more importantly, it's a humanity book. And it's definitely one of my guiding stars on this channel. I talk about it in a few different videos, so strong recommend from me about The Singularity is Near by Ray Kurzweil. Okay, I think that's it for this live stream. Hopefully that gave you some insight into 10X Genomics and the types of things it's doing. Again, it's a company that ARK Invest holds in ARKK and ARKG, and basically what it's doing is it's enabling high-resolution imaging at the cellular level and unlocking lots of DNA and genomics and healthcare research opportunities as a cellular imaging platform. So thanks for watching. I appreciate you letting me do almost a double episode today. I try to keep these to 20 minutes. As you can see, it's about 40 minutes today, and I'm excited to learn more about the genomic space and start understanding those pieces of the puzzle. So I appreciate you dealing with me as I struggle through that and deal with audio issues. I will, of course, fix that for the next live stream. So this is Ticker Symbol Live. My name is Alex, reminding you that the best investment you can make is in you. Thanks for watching.